Hi everyone, I wanted to do a video today on the topic of what I've learned during this process supporting Nick through his recovery. I think whenever there is a more difficult time in people's lives, whether you're the one going through it firsthand or you're supporting somebody through it, I think there's always something to learn. So I think that it's also really important to highlight those things. So I'm going to go through a few things today, and your list of things that you've been learning or have learned might be completely different, but I think the important thing is to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is something for everybody to learn. There's room for everybody to grow. So the first thing that I wrote down, and this is the biggest thing that this whole process has shown me, number one, is if I can get through this, then I can get through anything. I and I think that that kind of applies to Nick as well. Even though I'm not the one that's going through the OCD or anything, there have been very dark times for myself as well. It's hard going through this as a supporter, especially when in those moments when he no longer wanted to live. I would say those were the darkest times for me. And I remember at one point when Nick actually had committed to his recovery, I remember laying in bed and thinking, if I can actually get through all of this, then there's nothing that I can't accomplish. And I think that that's to speak to the fact that Nick and I, even though his OCD started a while ago, we just recently decided to start our own business, and maybe we wouldn't have the confidence to do that if this hadn't happened. So I think understanding that getting through the hardest times in your life will set you up to be able to confidently say, whatever the next curveball is thrown at you, I can get through this. So that's number one. Number two is patience, particularly with dealing with other people. So my patience with Nick has definitely gotten a lot better. I don't lose my temper quite as easily just because I've had to practice not doing that. And then it's also shown me that things don't happen right away. There's no such thing as, instant success with anything, whether it's OCD recovery, us starting our business. We started our business just less than 3 months ago, and there have definitely been points where I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I wish that this was going faster. But again, especially going through this, knowing that things don't just happen at the snap of a finger because you want it to is really big. And so this whole process has definitely taught me to be patient. The third is taking care of myself and not letting Nick's OCD or Nick in general, whether it's OCD or not, limit me. What I mean by that, if I want to go for a hike and Nick doesn't want to go, that doesn't mean I don't go. That means I go. Nick just doesn't come with me. If I want to or need to go to the store and I ask Nick if he wants to come, and I'm kind of hoping that he would, if he says no, then I go by myself. My life doesn't stop because of Nick's OCD or Nick's unwillingness, I don't even know if that's a word, to do something. Where previously I would probably, maybe not always, not do something because he didn't want to do it. And this was just me. This could be, this could not be an issue that other people have. But I would sometimes just not do things because Nick didn't want to do them. And that's not healthy behavior just in general, regardless of OCD. So it definitely did teach me to take care of my needs and my wants, because my life doesn't start or stop because of Nick or anybody. So that was a big thing that I did learn. Another really big thing that I learned was that it's okay to ask people for help. It's okay to be imperfect. Prior to this, I had a really big, and it was irrational, but I had a really big fear of other people not seeing my relationship, whether it was with Nick or with somebody else, not seeing it as solid and perfect and, but that's not how relationships are. They are not perfect all the time. That's a complete fallacy to think that they will be. And I think that did stem from a previous relationship where it was extremely unhealthy. I would call it emotionally abusive. And it almost ruined relationships with friends. And so from that point, I didn't want my friends to be seeing, and my family to be seeing, that my relationship wasn't going well. But going through this process, because I felt so lonely a lot of the time, it did force me to have to kind of like break that silence and talk to somebody about it, because otherwise I don't think that I would have been able to get through it completely on my own. Nobody really gets through life on their own. There is even think about making dinner. Like you still go to the store for the most part. You go to the store where somebody has stocked that shelf, where somebody has driven the food to the store, where a farmer has picked that food and given it to the transport truck to bring. You don't really truly rely on anybody or on yourself 100%. There's more than likely going to be somebody else helping you in some way or another. And it's okay to recognize that. I think that in society we get through, particularly today's society, and especially in the US where we are, I think that we have this habit of thinking we don't need anybody. I can do it all on my own. And that's just straight up not true. We're running a business. I don't know anything about accounting. If you asked me to do the accounting for our business would fail. So we bring somebody else on to do that. It's okay to ask for help, especially, if you're feeling shame about something, that's why I didn't want to talk to anybody about it initially. If you're feeling shame about it, that's probably a sign that you need to pay attention to that and recognize that and deal with it and probably talk to somebody about it. So I did feel a lot of shame about that, but it did push me to work on my perfectionism, because perfectionism was just something that in my whole life that I've struggled with. And definitely through this process, perfectionism has tanked. I don't care if I'm not perfect anymore. I never used to go to the grocery store to get food without makeup on. Now, I don't care. I'll go. I haven't showered. I'll be in my sweatpants. I don't care. So perfectionism definitely improved with all of this, and as a result also the asking for help part, and recognizing that it's okay to not seem perfect all the time, not have my relationships seem perfect all the time. That was a big one that I definitely learned. Another thing I learned was it is okay to take a break, whatever a break looks like. It is okay to take a break from OCD or from whatever the stress is that's going on. For me, there were a couple of weekends where, when we were living in Florida, I went away for the weekend by myself. I brought the dog, but I went away for the weekend because I just needed to have some breathing room because it was so overwhelming. It's okay to take a break. I did consider either separation or divorce, and if it was getting to the point where it was so overwhelming that a weekend away was not going to help me at all, that was something that I was actually considering. And I'm glad now that I didn't actually go down that route, because he did commit to his recovery. But I don't know. It might have been the best decision for me if things hadn't started to turn around. And I'm not giving that as advice, so please don't misconstrue that as advice. If you are with somebody who has OCD, I'm not telling you to do that. That is not permission. Every situation is different. So again, please don't take that as advice. But it is okay to take a weekend away if you need to go stay at a friend's place for a day or two, or even just go out to dinner with a friend. It's okay to take that break and have that boundary of, I need to take the next 20 minutes, hour, week, whatever, to have my own space and just be okay. So it's okay to take a break. That's a big thing that I learned. The big thing that also I mentioned this in a different video, and I don't remember which one it was, but this is the last thing. There's a lot to be learned from the OCD sufferer and what they're learning through recovery that can apply to you and actually help you get through this yourself. So, things like irrational and rational beliefs. I, at the beginning of this, felt like when Nick was playing his video games, because of everything that I was doing for him and helping him with, that he owed me time off of the video games. Truly, but that is irrational. People owing you things, feeling like you deserve something, and if you've gone through the irrational and rational stuff with your loved one, you'll probably understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. But having it would upset me because he wouldn't get off of his video games, but understanding that that is an irrational belief, that he owes me time where he's not playing video games, that is irrational, and it is an irrational belief that was leading or contributing to my suffering. He didn't owe me anything. I didn't have to be sitting on the couch on the other side of the store waiting for him to come out and hang out with me. I could have gone to dinner with somebody. I could have gone bowling. I mean, COVID. So granted, I couldn't really do a whole lot of that. But, I could have Skyped friends. There were so many other things that I could have done, but me sitting in that irrational belief of he owes me time and he owes me for helping him through this, or whatever the irrational belief is or was, that it does contribute to your suffering, and it can keep you from doing the things that are actually going to be helpful to you. So irrational versus irrational, that is one thing that OCD sufferers do have to work on. It's also something that you're probably going to benefit from too if you really put in the effort to that. Conditional versus unconditional self, other, and life acceptance. So unconditional self-acceptance, that had a lot to do with my perfectionism. This is something that the OCD sufferer also has to work on. So unconditional self-acceptance for me really helped with me working on my perfectionism, because I had to learn to accept myself if I wasn't perfect all the time. That was a big one. Unconditional other acceptance. I had to accept Nick whether or not he was going to actually recover. He's done a lot of work and he's not recovered yet. He had just had a really bad bout just a few days ago for probably a week, and I started getting really worried. But I have to have the unconditional other acceptance to understand that even if he doesn't fully recover, it doesn't make him a bad person. It doesn't mean that he can't be a good husband. I'm doing this because these are the irrational beliefs. These words have to do with irrational beliefs, good versus bad, and all those kinds of things. So unconditional other acceptance was really helpful. It's also really helpful for stuff like if you're on Instagram and you're seeing, especially in the US right now with the political climate that's going on, unconditional other acceptance, accepting people for different views that they have, whether it's political or, we work in the health industry, whether or not it's a different health perspective, etc. Having unconditional other acceptance for other people, it just really makes your life so much more peaceful, because you're not constantly that pit in your stomach where you're like, I can't believe this person thinks that. And most people have experienced that. That pit in your stomach, you don't experience it as much, and you feel a lot more at peace just in general from day to day. It's insane what unconditional other acceptance can do. Unconditional life acceptance, meaning that no matter what happens in life, it's okay. If our business fails, that's okay, because we can do other things. If Nick doesn't recover, again, I know that's other acceptance too, but it is life acceptance as well. If Nick doesn't recover, we'll still be okay. If one of our dogs passes away, or my parents pass away in some terrible, tragic accident, having the okayness with things not happening the way that you want them to, is something else that an OCD an OCD sufferer, that's the word I'm looking for, an OCD sufferer has to come to terms with, because we especially in 2020, I think it's shown all of us that we had this false sense of control. And we have no control. It has made it very clear this year we don't have control. And the unconditional life acceptance that the OCD sufferer should be working on is going to help you too. So I would really pay attention if you're struggling a lot right now as the supporter. I would kind of do some of the same things that the sufferer that you love is supposed to be doing, because it's probably going to benefit you a lot. It did me. I can tell you that I don't feel as much of this. And, granted, that does have something to do with the fact that Nick is doing a lot better than he was when he first started. But just in general, for day-to-day things bothering me, I don't have this like roller coaster and it wasn't really a roller coaster, but I don't have these ups and downs quite as much. Things don't bother me quite as much. I'm a lot more accepting of a lot more different things. And when I do get upset, I now, just like an OCD sufferer who's going through OCD recovery, I now can sit there and say, is there an irrational belief that is contributing to my anger, sadness, frustration, whatever it is? Is there an irrational belief there that I need to address? And a lot of the time there is. So I can sit there and think about it and say, that's irrational. And a lot of the time just recognizing that actually helps. So there's a lot to be learned through all of this. This is my list. Your list is probably going to be different. But just pay attention to what the OCD recovery process entails, because it could apply to you too. And B, recognize that there's always something to learn from any hardship of any sort. There's usually, maybe not always, the light at the end of the tunnel that you want, but it might be the light at the end of the tunnel that you need. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comments below. If you have any topics that you want covered, please put them in the comments below. And if you've learned anything throughout this process that I didn't list off, please put them in the comments below too, because I'm sure that a lot of other people would really like to hear them. But otherwise, I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.